on you. Let's see if this is working. It is. Rebooting the computer for the win.
Okay. So, everybody, we are now going to be reading the wife's perspective. If you were not here last week, we read, this is a couple's email.
Last week's will be on YouTube at some point this week and be on Spotify at some point next week. Sorry about the crackers.
You're good. This is part 2. There are some things that we touched on in husband's email from last week that we will not touch on in this one. If you are wondering why something wasn't touched on, I highly recommend checking out the Patreon Zoom call from last Sunday. You ready? All right. Hi, Chris and Peaches. I wanted to firstly say that my husband and I are truly grateful for you both, as you have brought many insights and changes into our marriage. It seems my husband has finally found someone to really listen to and follow, as he really loved Chris's insights on things in a relationship. My husband came to me about you guys when it seemed we needed you the most. We have sent in an email previous to this, but we are now sending a follow-up, as a lot of things have seemed to be solved the more we have listened to your podcast. Excuse me. Wait, yeah, I'm in the right one? This updated. Where am I? Okay. They both just have the same heading, I suppose.
Okay.
I met my husband when I was 22 years old, and he, at the time, was 29, turning 30. We met when he hired me to be his assistant manager at a small shop.
I mean, they said they worked together. Not that it was a boss-employee thing.
In husband's email, it says we started our relationship as coworkers and began dating.
Okay. Not quite the same thing, but...
I would agree, not quite the same thing. We have known each other for 5 years and married for 2. Our relationship went pretty quickly, and it was obvious my husband knew what he wanted. He had been single for 8 years prior to me. Within 2 months of me being at the shop, we started dating, and within 6 months of dating, he proposed to me. I, of course, was very shocked with this, as I was still going to college, and we hadn't lived together yet. I said yes to him, and we had a conversation about us needing to live with each other. I wanted to graduate college, and then we could marry. He agreed, and we moved in together not long after into a small 2-bedroom apartment. With us moving in together, it was great for us and our relationship. But this caused a lot of friction between his mother, sister, and us, as he was living in his mother's finished basement and paying rent each month on it. Okay.
So, to be clear, just so that I know, is it that they moved out or that she moved in?
It's that he moved out of the finished basement.
Okay. Okay.
This is exactly what you're supposed to do.
Yeah, I agree. His sister was also living in the basement with him rent-free after having to leave her bad relationship. The basement was built and finished specifically for my husband before I had entered the picture. My husband had his own apartment when I met him, but he soon then told me he was moving in with his mom, and this had been planned for some time. Okay, so in regards to the husband, you were living on your own and then moved back in, and that's why the basement was finished?
Yeah, basically I just, after the military and stuff, just normal military debt and stuff like that caught up with me.
Okay.
Bad credit, so on and so forth. The whole point of it was to move down there. Part of the rent I was paying them was to be held back, even though technically it was rent. It was supposed to be held back for me to help me get a new car because mine was breaking down and stuff.
Okay.
So it was to better my financial position because it was better to pay them a cheaper rent. They also got a finished basement out of it to increase their property cost. It was like a win-win situation.
Right.
And this is a few months before my wife. We had decided to do it. My mom had already moved forward with like getting a contractor and stuff whenever we started dating.
Okay, so this was something set in motion prior to you guys meeting or guys dating?
Dating.
Dating, okay. So you moved in out of necessity just for yourself because of the debt from the military.
And other things, but yeah, it was to get my financial situation in a way better spot.
Okay. My reaction was kind of a shock, to say the least, as I felt this man is now becoming the stereotypical living in his mother's basement guy. How did that conversation come about, if you don't mind me asking? Like, at this point, were you guys already engaged? Were you already planning on moving in together? Like, where were we at in this point?
No, we were just dating. But of course, we were dating, at least what I was thinking, to marry. So that was the whole thing. That was our mindset.
Well, that's why I brought it up to you.
Yeah.
Okay, so...
Sorry, I was saying I was very upfront about it. So, like, within a couple weeks of us dating, knew I liked her. I was like, okay, here's my situation.
Oh, okay. So this was brought up as you guys started dating, that you were moving back into mom's house.
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay. To make the story short and sweet, this did not go well, as his and our privacy was always invaded, and his mother made it clear that it was her house, her rules. My mother-in-law and her husband had to sell the house because of my husband leaving, as his rent money was being used to pay for the basement being finished.
It doesn't make sense.
That doesn't make sense.
So they were using, well, one, they lied to me about saving back part of the money.
Was it lied or was it misunderstood?
I believe it was lied, because
Okay.
that was the whole point of the premise, was for them to put back certain monies to help me pay off old debts and save up for a car, stuff like that, like get me back on my feet. But they were using part of that to pay for the loan that they took out to do the finished basement.
So why did they have to move out? Were they not paying their mortgage, or could they not afford their mortgage and the loan?
They couldn't afford the mortgage and the loan, so they tried to downsize.
Okay, so it was a choice they made then. Did you guys? Was there any? Well, I mean, none of this
Agreed.
isn't really relevant. I guess it's. I don't.
Yeah.
We'll see if this is relevant to
Okay.
their story, but it feels like this is a parent issue and more context than, because they're not living there. So
Right.
Okay.
This, however, was not the deal made between him and his mother at the time. The money he was paying was supposed to go to him getting out of debt and to go towards a new car he was really needing. So we were ultimately blamed for them selling the house and even getting a divorce in the end, twice. We have ultimately cut out his mother, and with doing so, his sister and even grandmother have cut all contact with my husband and I, because they don't like our decisions. Because they didn't like our decision.
I think it's probably more than that. I think it's that they saw that there was an agreement made, and the agreement wasn't upheld because he moved.
Right.
So if he would have paid the contracting to finish the basement like agreed, that wouldn't have happened. But
Yeah.
life happens. He found a woman, was moving out. Mom had her hand in that because she wouldn't leave them the fuck alone. Like that whole, this is my house. Well, if I'm paying you rent, it's my house too. Like, right.
If I may.
Yeah.
There wasn't exactly an agreement on how long. Like, I wasn't told my money was being used that way. Like I said, they technically weren't supposed to be using all the money. And two, we had a lot of passive aggressive threats from my stepfather about he was going to just sell the house and up and move to Kentucky and retire early, and like all this kind of stuff. Like, he was yelling and screaming with my mom upstairs, and we heard that kind of stuff. One time with my wife being home, and well, at the time it was my girlfriend, but you get the idea. She was like, you can't stay here if they're just going to up and leave out of nowhere.
That sounds like a mess.
Yep. Yes, it does.
You want to get back into the email?
Yep.
Okay. My husband and I agreed that her behavior was not going to change. It was unhealthy and even toxic. This has unfortunately caused my husband to become very isolated, as he also doesn't have many friends. Since this ordeal, it seems now that every flaw within my family is now brought up by my husband. I know and understand that people have flaws, but it almost seems like my husband is trying to get back at me for him cutting off his mom. Okay, so in the examples provided by the husband in his email, because you said flaws, the things that I can think about your husband complaining about was your family kind of shit talking your cooking. Is that what you're referring to as flaws, or is that, what do you mean by that?
Yeah, my brothers have some crappy flaws. I mean, everybody in my family has flaws that I don't agree with and I don't condone. But I do bring that up later in the email about the cooking.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, and I did agree with like the one that I did not really care about was what my uncle said, because I've been growing up with that with my whole life. I just ignore him at that point. At this point in my life, I don't talk to him.
Okay.
So him saying that was over my shoulder. I wrote, I don't really care, but obviously it made my husband upset.
Mm-hmm.
Which is valid.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
valid.
Yeah.
So before we get in any further in this email, I don't know where this is going, but I feel like it's important to tell everybody who's listening. This is why we say all the time that you leave and cleave. You're not married to your family. You are creating a family when you get married.
Mm-hmm.
And you're not always going to like your in-laws. You don't have to. You can make decisions to not be around them and to not do things with them. It doesn't mean that your person that's still related to them can't go and do those things. You just don't have to be a part of it. And that's okay. And if it's like a Christmas event or Easter or something that actually has like a family Thanksgiving, those things matter. That should be done at your house. And you should be able to invite the people that you want there. Or, you start your own traditions. That's the whole point of being married. It's creating your family.
Right.
Okay.
That's a good point. We've actually talked about having our own Christmases at our house now, because the ones that we go to with, that's on my mom's side are just always so crowded, and my uncle's there, and I'm like, there's some people we don't want to invite. So we've been actually talking about that.
I'm glad that's a conversation that's being had. You want to get back into the email, babe?
Yes.
His mom was toxic, invading, overbearing, had no respect for our boundaries or relationship, and was a manipulator and user. Nothing was ever her fault, as she never took responsibility for any of her actions and words. There are some family members that I have dealt with my whole life that I have learned to never take anything personal, because everything they said that was rude or uncalled for, I just always brushed it off and I wasn't bothered. Them saying those things was just a reflection of their own problems, and I never let it bother me. Okay. The ones most recently that have gotten my husband upset is my uncle. He is someone who doesn't really talk to anyone in the family besides my mom. My mom and him are close, but I've always told my mom he's taking her for a ride, as he is always borrowing money and never pays her back. Or he always has some kind of snarky, rude thing to say. My mom is like me and just not bothered by the things he says and just brushes it off. When I was just learning to cook, I decided to offer my mom help in the kitchen at a family gathering in her house. She needed help cutting up the potatoes to make mashed potatoes, and I offered to help. My uncle walks in and says, if she's cooking, I'm going to McDonald's. I brushed this off and didn't care, but it made my husband mad. The only thing that I had gotten upset about is when my mom had come in and told me I was cutting the potatoes too small and that they would get waterlogged. Why did that upset you?
She's the reason I never learned to cook. because she always critiqued me pretty hard on it.
Okay. So it upset you because it felt like she was like undermining you, or
It was like I was being oh my goodness. Critiqued, sorry.
and what's wrong with critiques?
When I had just offered her help with something that she really needed and she didn't have time for, like I was just trying to help her out, and then here she is like down my neck critiquing me.
Well, did she say it super shittily, or?
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's the biggest part that aggravated me whenever later on my wife is like, well, she said that she didn't mean it that way. It's like, well, you said it in a pretty shitty way.
Right. Okay. Were you going to sit up and say something, babe? Or are you just breathing?
I think we just need to read through all this because we heard all this last week. And
Okay.
even though this was a thing for them, I really don't understand how this is really relevant to what's going on. I know it paints a picture that they all don't get along.
Right.
But you're not going to get along with everyone.
Yeah.
And from the husband's standpoint, if you had a brother who was running his cum catcher, I'd check that shit. Because that might be your sister, but that's my fucking wife, and you're not going to talk about her like that. And
Yeah.
so I don't know. And as for the mom thing, like if mom is critiquing, that's what moms do. But if she's being critical and not trying to like be constructive with it,
Right.
then she's just complaining to complain. That's not helping you at all. So, but we hit all this last week. I don't, okay.
I guess I'm just trying to break down emotions and follow threads to
Right.
really understand. It also didn't help that she judged every mood I made. It also didn't help that she judged every move I made. This comment from her did nothing but turn me back into a little girl, and I was sad. I guess she had gone and told my husband that I'd messed them up, and then he came in to check on me. Is that what mom said? She said that husband when she walked up to you. Did she say that my daughter messed up the potatoes?
Well, she said an F word in there, but yeah, the general sense.
What an overreaction. You can just cut the potatoes smaller.
Right.
It's not like you have to throw the whole potato out. Yeah, I would definitely look into having holidays at home.
Yep.
Oh no, I'm set on it at this point. I didn't mind cooking Thanksgiving last year.
Yeah, I think that would be a good call to heal the mother wound that's going on and all of that. I would highly recommend it. I have talked to my mother since the incident, and she apologized and took accountability. She even told me she didn't realize that's how she made me feel all this time about cooking and that she was sorry. The problem had been resolved, but my husband still seems to have an issue with it. And with my uncle, he doesn't seem to understand that I do not care at all, but I do see his side on how he could be upset by this. I have told him if something he did or said really bothered me, I would say something, and if any of it was ever towards you or our son, I would immediately step in to defend. Since I've been in my teens, my mom and dad have always shown their support for me. My mom let me stay in her home rent-free after I was 18, so long as I went to school and was working. My dad always told me I would always have a home wherever he may be and to always call him if I ever needed anything and he would make it work. My mom knows what has happened with my husband's family and has told my husband that she will love him and be his mom. My husband and my mom may have some communication issues as they just don't know how to talk or respond with each other. My mom feels sometimes my husband's reactions are unpredictable, and my husband says my mom talks over him while she's trying to talk to elaborate, which is just how she talks.
Do you get in touch on that one, or you want me to?
I'll touch on it a little bit, and then you can take over because pain med brain.
Okay.
Is this one of those flaws that you were talking about within your family, like your mom trying to talk over people?
Yeah, she whenever she thinks there's an issue, she goes on and on and on and on talking, trying to, maybe de-escalate or
Filibuster.
Yeah, like try to
Control the conversation.
try to control, try to tell her side like immediately kind of thing. Yeah.
So
The most recent time of this was she hit her son whenever he was over at her house, and I don't mean that she busted his butt, but she smacked his hand, I think, or something of that nature.
why?
And I can't remember. I don't know if he hit her or. I mean, he's 2 years old, so he's pushing boundaries.
Okay.
Did you say she hit her son or your son?
My son.
Okay, that matters.
Yeah.
Yeah, no. So she had hit him, and I was trying to be as civil as I could, but even though I was pissed off because I was picking him up by myself, my wife wasn't there. I said, "Okay, we're not doing that. We don't hit him." And then immediately she started trying to rationalize. Well, I hit both my boys, and there was nothing wrong with it, and just on a tangent. And all I did was shut down at that point because I don't know what else to say to you
I would
because
have
you're going to
just
make
left.
me pissed.
I would have just left. We don't do that with my child, and that's the end of the conversation.
No, that's how I tried to have it. Yeah.
All right, before you move on.
Hang on. I'm
okay.
not done. To say, which is just how she talks, that's enabling behavior.
Yep.
It's very rude to try to control conversations and speak over somebody, especially if they're trying to get their side in. To filibuster and go, well, no, that's not what I meant, and then just continuing to talk is definitely a manipulation tactic.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
She's excusing the mom's behavior. That's not how that works. And she's also excusing.
It's still just on me.
Oh, she's also excusing the uncle's behavior because it doesn't bother her, but it's taking away from the fact that it bothers him. So this is one of those things where somebody could say something or look at me too long and it'll bother Peaches and not bother me at all. I won't even notice the shit. But it's the other way around. It doesn't negate the fact that you feel the way that you feel about it, regardless of me agreeing with it or not. That's how you feel.
Right.
And because you're my wife, you're the priority there, not anybody else. It's us. The mom being disrespectful and talking over or doing the things that she's doing, like, you guys don't have to tolerate that. You know, and in that situation where you went and picked your son up and like she had smacked his hand, if you guys have a no smacking policy and she did that, you'd have been like, look, we don't hit our kid. I'd appreciate you don't do that anymore. And when she starts making excuses, be like, I don't want to hear it. You hit my kid. I'm telling you, don't do that shit again. You can save all that.
Right.
You can be polite about it or you can be nasty about it if that's what's got to happen. But just know that the way that you handle these situations is going to put people out and it's going to make them not want to be around you anymore. So you have to make the decision. Do you want to not deal with these people and have them be mad at you, or do you want them hitting your kid, talking over and being shitty towards you? Like, there has to be a line. You're not going to ever be at peace if you're allowing people to fucking step on you like a doormat. That's what I was going to say.
Yeah, we've since had a conversation with her. Obviously, that's not how we should be talking to each other, and especially with Jason. He just wanted to get to the point of, no, you're not going to smack our kid like that. Like, I know he smacked you in the face and knocked your glasses off, but we're gonna, and I don't know if it was like an automatic reaction to smack his hand away, but we did tell her, no smacking.
I'm glad that conversation was had after the fact and it wasn't just swept under the rug. It's a really dope thing to stand your ground, isn't it?
Yeah, I wish I would have stood my ground right in the moment, though. But I feel like this is part of my email where I feel like I'm the outsider. If I say anything, I'm going to be crucified, basically. So it's hard for me. Like, okay, in that moment, I tried to lay down a boundary of, hey, don't hit my kid. And I was met with just opinions, like y'all said, filibustering, and then just bullshit, to be honest. It was just a bunch of anecdotal stuff. Well, I hit my kids, so they're fine, and stuff like that.
Yeah, and in those kinds of situations, I would have done what you did. I would have well, I would have done less than what you did. I would have just said, look, don't hit my child. I'll see you next week. And I would have just left. I wouldn't have stayed and listened to all of that. In my opinion, though, wife's mom needs to be handled by the wife.
I agree.
Husband's mom needs to be handled by the husband. In a situation like this where they want to invite you in as a family member but aren't treating you as a family member, I would take that step back and look, you guys, I'm good. Because you can't offer to take me in as family and then treat me like I don't have a voice and my opinions don't matter, especially when it comes to the family that I've created.
I think at some point, somebody's going to have to stand up. Whether it's, sometimes the opposite person in the family has to step up to the in-law. Yeah. Does that make sense? Like, if it's your mom, you should be the one dealing with it. If it's my mom, I should be the one dealing with it. But at some point, those lines are going to get crossed because it doesn't get resolved because people don't want to hurt people's feelings.
Right.
So that's where unity comes in. You guys have to be on the same page with things. Let's move on with the email, though, because we hashed all this last week.
Recently, with our financial situation being strapped, my dad has been stepping in financially to help us stay on our feet. Given my father and I's relationship, we are very close and he is always going to have my back. Same goes for my mother. While my mother cannot afford to help out financially, my dad can. The things my dad does for not only me, his grandson, and his son-in-law are always genuine and has never ever said anything to me or my husband about our financial situation. Christmas came and my dad really hates gifts. He would always rather buy something that someone can actually use and benefit from. When it came time for our Christmas visit, he asked me what I wanted, and I simply told him food and household items. And he gave me a budget of $400 and said, let's go to Sam's Club, and we made a whole day of shopping. Not only was it fun, but a memory I won't forget, and I honestly couldn't have asked for anything better from my dad.
This just contradicted his email. Or the conversation that we had, because the conversation that we had before was that they agreed on a $150 budget between him and her.
Right.
And then she got there in line, called and said that she didn't know that he was going to pay for it. Wasn't that the conversation? Or that it was last minute, she told him that he was going to pay for the groceries or something? Isn't that how that went last week? Am I wrong, chat? People, anyone? I feel like that was.
You're right. I mean, as far as my perspective, I didn't get a phone call about him paying until they were literally in checkout.
Right. So she knew that was going to happen before it got to that point. Okay.
Back into the email.
Yep.
When I called my husband to give the good news, he sighed and was instantly feeling what seemed to me annoyed. This broke my heart a little bit, as I had just had a great time out with my dad. And then I felt dread coming home. When we got home, my dad had told my husband, Merry Christmas, I hope it helps you guys. I wanted to cry, knowing that my husband didn't feel grateful and was just spiteful because of his ego. Husband, were you not grateful that there was food and stuff provided for your family? Is that
No,
true?
I mean, I was, and I thanked him whenever he was helping me. Like, I came home, like, soon after them, once I got off from work, and I was helping them bring stuff in. And he had said that, and I'm like, no, I appreciate it, because he did help us out. It's just the act itself, I guess, like we talked about last week.
Right, the disrespect of not the heads up and the conversation beforehand.
Correct.
Okay. So, wife, so you said I wanted to cry knowing that my husband didn't feel grateful. And husband just said that he was grateful. So this was a fact that you were telling yourself when in actuality was just an assumption.
Well, after
Maybe it was just an assumption, yeah, but it was that's what it felt like at the time.
Right.
Okay.
We hadn't had a conversation about it at that point.
After the conversation that we had last week, though, we know that it wasn't that he was not grateful for the situation. He was frustrated that it happened without knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So this comes down to one of the things that we just recently recorded where you're trying to tell people how they feel and you're
Right.
assuming. Instead of assuming things, you should probe questions.
Yeah.
You know, what's going on with you? What I can tell that your energy isn't quite right. Could you explain to me what's going on so that I know? Because this whole situation would have been avoided had probing questions been asked and they would have discussed it versus the plasma situation because she had to leave, unless that was a different situation. There was a lot.
That was
last
a different
week. Okay.
That was
situation,
a
but
different- okay.
I didn't want to talk to my husband like that in front of my dad. Like we don't need to have that conversation in front of my dad.
No,
So that's why.
Right, but it could have happened afterwards and you wouldn't have felt the way that you did if you would have just waited to find out what was going on. Instead, you read the room, assumed something because you knew he was upset, and the guilt that you felt made you feel that way. And it wasn't that he was not appreciative. It's that he didn't like the way that things played out. We know that now, but again, in the moment, you could have just been like, hey, I know that I'm feeling kind of fucked up because I know that he's upset. It's not that he doesn't appreciate the things, especially if he told your dad he appreciates it. You guys need to be patient, a little bit of grace, have the conversations obviously away from people. I agree with that 100%. Definitely doesn't need to be had in front of the dad, but the conversation should have been had before assumptions were made. You don't want to ever assume your person's angry because if they're just processing something and you're like, you're fucking mad, I can tell. And they're like, no, I'm not. And now I am because you won't fucking stop. Right? That's a very different scenario.
Right. That's just how I was feeling after the phone call that I had with him. And, there was nothing to be. So that was definitely an after situation that should have happened. Yeah.
So this is a note that I've made for myself. This is something that I've actively worked on within my own mental processes and telling myself stories, as my husband and I have called them. So in that sentence, I wanted to cry knowing that my husband didn't feel grateful. Replace knowing with feeling. I wanted to cry feeling that my husband didn't feel grateful. Because if you were to approach your husband and say, I know that you're not grateful for this, that's instantly accusatory, and he would be on the defense, assuming. I personally would be on the defense. You don't know what I'm going through, right? If you would approach him and say, babe, I feel like you're not grateful because of what happened on the phone, that now opens the door of, well, no, I actually feel this way. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. I've actually almost changed everything in my mind from know to feel. I know absolutely nothing. That has helped a lot in my healing journey. Is I will never look stupid because there's really not many out there who know more than I know.
No, you're right. That would probably help a lot in the future.
Are you good, Ben?
I'm fucking thirsty as shit, and I don't want to drink another energy drink.
I have some water right here. Okay. In the years of having our child, I have gained a lot of weight. When I was pregnant, I was diagnosed with gestational diabetes and had to take insulin. Since giving birth, I have not dropped any of the weight besides water weight. Despite my diet changes and changed life habits, I still wasn't losing the weight. I asked my doctor to get on a medication that is similar to Ozempic, but a different brand. We do not have any insurance since I turned 26 and fell off my mom's plan. This made the medication cost over $1,000 a month, but I was able to find a way to make it cost $200 a month instead. I had gone through all of the options in my head on how I could make this work and talked to my husband about it. I told him this. Oh, wow. I just could make this work. I told him this could change my life and I really wanted it to be healthier. He agreed, but the cost of $200 a month just wasn't in the cards. Okay, so I'm going to ask a clarification question. Last week, I recall us talking about that, where you guys had the conversation. And I may be remembering incorrectly. Husband, did you say that you did tell your wife that it's not in the cards now, but we can make it work in X amount of time?
Yeah, I had asked to wait until the pool season started.
Okay. And how far off was season from that point?
I want to say it was 2 or 3 months.
Okay.
Well, you've been on the shop for what, 2 months? Yeah, 2 months now.
2 months. Okay. I was just going to give up on it until my dad had given me a call to check in and see how things were going. I told him the situation and he offered to pay half and to ask my mom if she could also pay half. My mom and dad came to an agreement, but my mom said she couldn't always help. This is where I started donating plasma to come up with the other half every month when my mom wasn't able to help.
I had to interrupt.
Okay.
Read that for me one more time. And before you do that, Zach, do not dash drinks. I appreciate that, Tara. I would love to have something other than an energy drink. I have whiskey right here if I really need it.
Yeah.
But I don't. I'm gonna get a soda tonight from Taco Bell when we play zombies in a little bit. So I'm just gonna suffer. Thank you for the thought though. That's awesome. All right, read that again, please, babe.
Okay.
She said I completely given up on it. Is that how that was worded?
I was going to give up on it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Even though
That-
you only had to wait 2 to 3 months.
Yeah, that
It's
also
not giving
stood
up.
out to me. Yeah.
Right. It's not giving up. It's being patient and letting your husband lead and provide.
So now I'm going to ask, did it feel like in that moment it was never going to happen?
From my memory, there was no talk of waiting because when I went to look at our text messages about the shot,
Mhm.
I had told him that I would start donating plasma, and he said, yeah, that's probably what needs to happen.
To make the shots work?
Yes.
Okay. So from your perspective and your recollection, there was no 2-month waiting plan. It was to you, this was not going to happen.
Yeah. I mean, I would assume that when he started making more money during the season, it would happen. But I was so ready to start my journey that I had told myself I would help myself get it. And I told him I wanted to do it myself. That's when I told him I would start donating plasma.
But you didn't do it yourself. You had your parents do it for you, which removed his ability to lead and feel like a man and provide. Right? That's so just so that everybody's on the same page. That's how I view that situation. We talked about this a lot last week, so I'm not gonna,
It's just me.
yeah. We talked about this a lot last week, so I'm not gonna keep rehashing that. I do want to get to the point where like we have things that are new to discuss or like a different perspective.
So you don't want me to reread that part? You wanted me?
No, I did. I
Okay.
needed to hear that sentence again because
one.
I thought it said that she had given up on the idea, which means she doesn't trust her husband to follow through with the things that he's saying he's going to do, or she went to dad because she didn't want to wait the extra 2 months. And I wanted to have that discussion because we didn't have that last week. Last week I was hung up on the fact that I think that she just went and asked for it so that she could have it right now because waiting sucks ass and nobody wants to wait. We live in an instant gratification era.
I'm so impatient.
Right. Well, I mean, we got new headsets today for gaming and didn't have to fucking leave the house for it. It was delivered this evening while we were here. So like everything is right fucking now. The delayed gratification things in life matter.
It does.
If you're, hey, babe, I want fuzzy Crocs. I'll make you wait for a little while because I don't want to see that shit. So you're just going to have to wait to get your fuzzy Crocs.
You're going to wait to see if I forget about them. That's exactly
I just
what it is.
reminded you. How is that going to be a thing?
Growing on.
Yes.
Yeah, it's just on me now. So started donating plasma. This too has also made my husband annoyed and upset, and it has taken another toll on his ego for not being able to provide. The donating the plasma?
The fact that the parents are paying for it, or was.
Okay. You keep referencing his ego a lot. Do you think that's ego, babe, wanting to provide? And
I think it's my duty.
yeah.
And there are things that if I was unable to do those things and other people were stepping in and doing that, and I was able to see that I'm not the one providing, it's not my ego, it's me failing as a man.
Okay.
And you taking the ability for me to provide that for you in a way that I know that I can eventually, you are stripping me of the ability to be a provider. And this is an extreme take.
Okay.
I know this is an extreme take, but if you were like, I want a new dress, right? And I'm like, I need 2 weeks. And you had a family member or anyone buy you that dress instead of waiting for me to do it, you and I would have a huge fucking problem.
I believe that.
Whoever bought the dress, like there would be depending, obviously there's a whole lot of steps in there that would have to be resolved. But in you doing that, you're effectively telling me that I am not man enough to give you the things that you need. Therefore, I am not providing the life that I am supposed to be providing for you as my wife. I would question the entirety of our marriage at that point.
Wow.
My job is to provide.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean income. It means to make sure that you have the things that you need.
To make me happy.
You taking that away from me diminishes my ability to be a man, not a male, a man, and that's a problem. Just like if, I don't know, I don't even have another example.
Okay.
Oh, somebody,
What?
Cheryl Couch said, as a woman, if someone was cooking for my man and it was his first choice over mine, I would feel like the husband does. There you go. I was trying to think of a woman's explanation, and all I could think of was that stupid fucking dress in my head because I pictured you in a dress. Anyways.
Yeah, if you preferred somebody else's gravy and biscuits, that would devastate me.
Right.
That would fuck me up.
Or if you were like, hey, I'm not feeling good, I'll make them tomorrow. And I'm like, don't worry. Susie Homemaker is going to come over and make gravy and biscuits for me tonight because I want them. Yeah. See that face? That's how I would feel if you let somebody else buy your fucking clothes.
Susie, I'm armed.
Yeah.
So, husband, do you feel the way that my husband feels? Like, did all of that align with what you've been going through?
Oh, 100%. But then it adds a weird dynamic because it is her dad or it is her mom.
Why is it a weird dynamic?
Because I'm trying to tiptoe on not hurting her family's feelings because she still wants to have that relationship with them.
All right, so here we go again. Unpopular opinion.
Okay.
This is not a parent's problem. This is a problem between you and your wife. She should have been patient and waited instead of going to dad and asking dad and mom to do those things because dad and mom didn't know that she was trying to do this and just offered it. A conversation had to be had so that they knew that this was a thing, which gave them ability to offer it. This is one of those things that you don't go outside of your relationship for things. Going right back to the gravy and biscuits analogy, if we had another female friend and I wanted gravy and biscuits and Peaches wouldn't make it tonight or till Friday of next week, and I was like, hey, I was really craving gravy and biscuits, and they offered it to me and I accepted, I'm in the wrong for doing that because I know how that would affect our dynamic.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, so to me, that's where the issue lies.
That would feel like a betrayal to me.
I understand that mom and dad want to help and be a part of the life and do the thing because as a dad, I want to spoil the fuck out of my kids, but I want to do that. So like, let's go buy 4-wheelers today, guys. Let's go buy some new toys. That's not the same thing as going and spending $400 at Sam's Club to make sure there's food in the house, stripping my ability to provide. We're taking something like, the medical thing and going and handling that when that's my fucking duty.
Yeah.
So I don't think that this is a mom and dad problem. I think that there's a communication thing happening outside of your marriage that shouldn't be happening.
And then I want to ask the wife, can you elaborate on your definition of ego for me?
Honestly, now that you ask it, I'm not really sure.
Okay.
I felt like for a while, my husband hasn't been able to provide, and he knew that, but it's like he couldn't accept it because at that point I was chipping in, helping us get money into the household as well. So it's like, okay, I'm obviously like helping bring money into the household. I don't know.
That's teamwork. right?
Yeah.
It's the two of you versus the world, not the two of you with your parents, aunts, and uncles and cousins all doing the thing. Like, so that's a different scenario. If we were broke, if Peaches and I were broke, and I had to resort to selling dope to make money, and she had to work at Waffle House from 3 to 6 a.m. to fucking make it work so she could still do the mom thing and the kids, and we had to suffer for 2 or 3 years to get back on our feet, that's a very different scenario than going outside and having somebody else come in and cater to us or try to like supplement that. If we had that, if you and I were in that position, babe, and somebody was giving us money or supplementing our lifestyle, I'm never going to step up because we're taken care of. Why would I, as a man, do more than I need to do if everybody else is just going to pay for our life?
Right.
But again, I see that us struggling together is different than us struggling with other people. I wouldn't tell other people we were struggling. If we were broke, nobody would fucking know about that shit.
Nope. I want to say that I can appreciate the fact that you said, now that you're asking me, I don't really know what I meant by that when you used ego. That's a respectable thing. If I have also started doing this. If you are going to label somebody something in your mind, definitely Google the definition. I'm Googling the definition of everything now. I don't even trust the definition of cat anymore. Like, understanding the words you use will vastly improve the way you're able to communicate what you're feeling in a more accurate way to do it. In a more accurate whatever I'm trying to say.
I'm gonna I don't think that ego is the word there. Pride is the ego.
Yeah.
And his pride being hurt in those moments is valid. My pride would be hurt in those moments if I was him.
Right.
I can understand that. Just like yours would be if some other chick was making me dinner. There are things that we are responsible for with each other that other people shouldn't do.
Yeah.
There are also other things that would happen, right? If we were broke, spending would stop.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
Somebody in the chat mentioned last week the Amazon shopping that was happening at the time. There would be nights where you would be eating or the kids would be eating and I'd be sitting outside pounding water to fill my belly or eating ramen. Like, I would be the last to eat in that situation because I need to make sure that my family is taken care of. There are things that are just normal function in my brain that I don't think a lot of people understand, and it's because they weren't taught. I've watched men that I looked up to suffer so that their family had what they needed, and they would play it off like, I'm just too tired for dinner tonight, and would go to bed because they knew there was no fucking food for them to eat. Like,
Yeah.
If I can.
yeah.
Yeah, no, as far as the Amazon thing, that may have been misconstrued again. When I said it last week, that was like during my season. I wasn't spending money on me. She was spending money on Amazon. I had to bring that up because of how we weren't able to put as much back because of the spending on Amazon. That was more of like during the season kind of thing versus like, we know we're struggling. Amazon was cut out.
Right.
Like, everything was cut out. We cut out all subscriptions.
Was that
I brought us down to bare minimum.
Was that your first season versus slow season?
The first time that my first year, I didn't have as many customers. I had one customer that basically funded my whole year. He got me up and running.
So you knew,
but,
did you know there was going to be a slow season?
Yes, but me and my wife were both working a job during the winter, so the
That's
first
a yes or no answer.
winter wasn't as bad.
Yeah,
yes
it doesn't matter though. If you know slow season's coming and your wife isn't going to be working, that shit shouldn't have been happening. You guys should have been stockpiling money to make sure that you have to get it through the slow season. Any seasonal job on the planet has feast or famine. And when it's feast, you have to make sure that you're putting 10, 15% away to make sure that you can get through your slow season. I have seen so many fucking tattoo artists get evicted during slow season because they're so used to making $1,000 a day that when they go to making $1,000 a week, they can't afford their life anymore. And now they're a roommate to somebody. Yeah. You know that if that's going to happen, you have to be more responsible with your money.
No, and I screwed up my first year. Absolutely. We were both working that winter. She was working and I was working a job. And we were just alternating for our kid so we didn't even have childcare either. So like the first season wasn't nearly as bad as like this one where I tried to keep her stay at home.
Well, now we know moving forward that you need to be saving for slow season.
Absolutely.
That way it doesn't happen next time. All right, let's get back to it.
Back into it. What has sent my husband finally spiraling is when our son's birthday came up and my dad had offered to buy us some food and cake for our son. I wasn't going to really have a party for our son's birthday. I was just depressed. We had no money to feed people and host. All right, guys. For anybody out there, just an idea. If you don't have the funds to feed a party of people, post we're having a potluck. Bring your own dish, and it is so easy to whip together some hamburger helper for everybody.
I actually really enjoy hamburger helper.
Me too.
Put some hot sauce in that shit. I will fucking eat that right out of the pan.
Get that Texas garlic bread.
I don't even need the bread.
I love the bread.
Just some hot sauce.
That's a really good. I might do that for our daughter's birthday party. Potluck going. That sounds fantastic. My dad had texted me the day before my son's birthday, asking if I was having anything for him. I had told my dad that I wasn't planning anything and that he can just come by to see our son when he wanted to. He then offered to buy us food and cake so we could have a little celebration. Okay. So for him to offer, did you tell him, like, we're not having a birthday party, we don't have money for the cake, or, like, how did that conversation look?
From exactly what I read from my text messages, he had texted me asking if we were having anything for him, and I said no, I wasn't planning on having anything, and that was the end of it. And then he immediately offered if he would allow us, if we would allow him to do that.
That's how I remember it from last week too.
I don't even remember touching on that.
Yeah, we did. Which from a grandpa standpoint, game the fuck on. Like,
right.
But I almost positive last week that we said the issue wasn't that he paid; it's that there was not a conversation that was had in between the accepting of the offer, and that should have been had.
All right. This perked me up and made me excited, so of course I said yes. I had then asked him if my uncle could come, and he said he would ask him since he was on the phone with him in that moment. I told my husband about it, and he instantly was sighing and upset about it, and I, for the last time, was done with that reaction to him offering us things. Oh, meaning the dad. Okay, I need to read that one more time. I told my husband about it, and he instantly was sighing and was upset about it, and I, for the last time, was done with that reaction to my father offering us things, especially in our time of need. He made instant assumptions about how I was planning this for so long and wasn't telling him, how he couldn't take off work for the day, etc. I got angry and cut him off before he could make any more excuses. There was an obvious issue deeper than just having a party, and it needed to be addressed.
So instead of letting you guys have the conversation, you cut him off? Isn't that, what did that just say?
I got angry and cut him off before he could make any more excuses. There was an obvious issue deeper than just having a party, and it needed to be addressed.
What were the excuses?
And how she's been planning this for so long and wasn't telling him, and how he couldn't take the day off of work for it.
Right, those aren't excuses. That's not an excuse.
Yeah,
that's an accusation.
Yeah.
But I'm curious as what the excuses are, because if something's going on and I'm not okay with it, and I'm telling you why, and you're telling me that I'm making excuses or that I'm not being forthcoming, and I'm trying to tell you and you're talking over me. No, I'm fucking trying to tell you and you won't shut up. Like, oh, what?
The screen, it's just me if you're talking.
Yeah, I don't care.
Okay.
I keep forgetting to push the button.
Yeah. So would you actually like to have them elaborate?
Sure.
Okay.
Maybe it wasn't excuses that I meant to put there, but yeah, accusations that I had been going behind his back, talking to my family about a party for him, and that I wasn't keeping him in the loop. And I've been trying to tell him I literally just had this conversation with my dad. Like, I haven't been planning anything. And we had already had conversations prior to, if we were going to have a party for him, that he couldn't take off work. And it was like stuff that we had already talked about that he was bringing up.
Okay, so wait.
that I was like,
Wait. So he's already told you that he can't take the time off of work to do the party. So you knew that was the case and that he couldn't be there. And then you tell him that the dad and the uncle are coming over to do a party even though he has to work.
no. So Jason gets off at 4. Well, he comes home around 4. If we had anything, it would have been later in the day.
So then he could have made it.
Yes.
Then I don't understand how that was even relevant in the conversation.
Her dad used to be third shift, so whenever he normally used to come over, it would be early in the morning, and then he would go home and go to bed. So I had forgotten that he had moved over to first shift.
Okay. So then there was a conversation that needed to be had there that wasn't. Or a reminder, hey, well, he's on third shift, it'll be nighttime. That could have ended that entire situation.
And that was my thought process after I was remembered for me. Yeah, reevaluating it, yeah.
Okay.
After the cutoff, we were just fighting and talking over each other, and our son entered the room. I was not going to do that fighting in front of him, and since my husband wouldn't stop to listen, I hung up and grabbed our son to spend time with him. I didn't know he had called me back, as I didn't have my phone anymore, and he left a voicemail telling me hanging up wasn't fair. I texted him to tell him what happened, and a word wasn't said back. Nothing was said to me when I had gotten home from my appointment. As he sat there in silence, I told him how our son's birthday was to be planned since he wasn't saying anything. Is this after your plasma appointment? Is this the one that we talked about in the last email as well?
Yeah, it was where I had an issue with, I was just staring at her and I didn't know where to start.
Okay. All right.
And then she started going into, okay, well, this is how we're going to do it.
Okay, so this is her POV of that same conversation.
Right. Well, her POV ignores the fact that there was text messages while she was at the plasma place. Because they were he said that they were texting while she was getting her plasma done. That was completely not mentioned just now. So there's communication that happened that was left out of this version of the email.
From what I recall, she was texting him and he wasn't replying because he didn't feel okay. And then
I was watching our son.
And then eventually she messaged back and said, "Well, fuck me then," or however that went out. So there wasn't really wasn't much dialogue.
So then they both failed to communicate there. This whole situation, the hanging up on him when you guys were trying to have a conversation because the son walked in the room, means that you guys don't know how to emotionally regulate. There's screaming, yelling, arguing, fighting shit is childlike behavior. If you can't talk to each other the way that Peaches and I are talking to each other or talking to you guys, you are going to have a very hard time being adults in life and everything, because you can't do that to your boss. You can't do that to your friends. You can't do it to people you love because they're not going to tolerate it. Why do it to your person? You guys need to learn to like take a fucking breath and talk to each other, not talk over each other, and use the words with intent. Don't have text message conversations.
Right.
Sometimes conversations need to be had in person so that you don't miss 80% of what's actually happened because body language isn't being seen. You can't hear tone and inflection. Like you guys need to be very aware of that, because this whole thing could have been avoided if you would have just talked to each other. And like he could have been like, "This is how I feel," and she could have been like, "Well, this is how I feel." Okay, well, how do we resolve this? And then fix the fucking problem instead of attacking each other.
Here's that little reminder of the change and shift.
Right.
Those little. Yep. Back into the email, Pam?
Yep.
Okay. This is when he told me he was always getting emasculated by my dad and he was sick of me defending him. I told him that at this point I had to defend my dad because he has done nothing but help us, has said nothing to my husband about the financial situation, and how everything from him has always been genuine. It is like he would rather let us go without and not let his ego get even more hurt. Okay, so we're on the same page that ego is not the word you meant to use in that, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
I also think that emasculating is the wrong word. Pride is the issue there.
Yeah.
He's not emasculating you. He's not taking away your ability to be a man. He is overstepping, making you feel like you are not a man. Okay. At least that's how I define that. But
I'm sorry. Yeah, I thought emasculation was that.
Okay.
I mean, I guess that's perspective. Somebody that takes away your ability to be a man is not the same thing as making you feel like you're not a man, in my opinion. And
Understood.
somebody over.
Yeah, you're right. There is a distinction.
Yeah, and it might be the same thing and just varying degrees of it, but in my head, that's just the way that looks. So I could be wrong.
So, one thing that stands out to me from both of your guys' emails are words were used that once they were really like picked apart, we were like, ooh, yeah, that really wasn't the word that I should have used, right? So, in moments where you guys are having conversations about something, and for example, say it's a conversation about dad helping pay something, because we already know that's going to be a tense conversation. Wife comes to the husband and says something. Husband, if you are instantly infuriated, say that. Say, I'm angry. And then wife, your response is going to be, why? And then husband, you're just going to elaborate. You're not going to place blame on anybody besides, I'm angry because you said X, Y, and Z, and it triggered this inside of me. The root of the problem is not that the dad is helping or that, I'm going to just say that the dad is helping. It's that there's not communication there and you guys aren't really using words that, what, babe?
I was waiting.
Oh, I don't know.
Not
You said
using words.
It's gone.
The issue is that they're not communicating and that things are being made, decisions are being made without his acknowledgement and he's being told about it. Mm-hmm. That's not how relationships work.
Right.
Even when I have the final decision making ability, we have a conversation about things first and then we make a decision on it. That's the issue in all of that. I sat up to clarify that.
Yeah.
I actually had something else too, but now it's gone. It's gone.
Yeah.
What?
No. There was a paragraph left of
Okay.
just talking about how she feels like her family's being picked apart for more flaws now and
I remember what I was going to say.
all of that. Okay.
Would any of this changed? Would any of this would have any of this changed had you simply said, yeah, he can pay for whatever he's going to pay. I'm going to keep a running tally and during season I'm going to pay him back. Because then it's a loan.
Right.
Right? Do you think that would have changed the way that you viewed this situation in terms of your pride being hurt? Because at that point he's loaning you money versus playing the role of husband.
I feel like he wouldn't accept whatever money I did try and give him. But if we had that conversation that yes, this would be a loan, not a handout.
It would change
like that
things.
was the I can't say it.
Prerequisite.
But that was thank you. If that was set in stone ahead of time, okay, whatever you get for me, I will pay you back during the summer, then absolutely.
Right. Because the pride is in check still. No bruising there. I really truly see all of this just coming down to decisions being made without being a part of it and then being told after the fact.
Yeah. As somebody who has been in that position, it feels like an afterthought. And it sucks. It sucks to be an afterthought in something. So what are some questions that you have for us, guys? Because I feel like we've covered a lot and we've broken down some things and some things have come to the light.
Well, I wanted both your opinions on one thing, and this, of course, isn't attacking my wife. It's just stating something that does happen. When I try and work with my son, I feel like she makes excuses and stuff like that for my son. Does that make sense?
What do you mean work with him? And what kind of excuses? Like
disciplinary or trying to figure out what's going on with him, anything like that. Like if he's just throwing a fit, let's say, I'm trying to get him to calm down, she'll be like, well, he's tired or he hasn't had lunch yet or something. Like she makes excuses for him. It's like, well, no, the screaming and stuff isn't tolerate. Sorry, he's bouncing on me.
how old is the baby?
He's 2.
2 years old? Well, at
So yeah,
2
he's
years
just now
old,
starting to push boundaries really hard. Like we're having an issue with hitting and stuff like that right now.
right? So at this age, children tend to still cry and scream and throw tantrums as a form of communication because they don't know the words yet. And the tantrums are going to get worse. It's not terrible twos and the awful threes. It's children are developing and they're feeling things, but they don't know the words to explain their feelings. So it's just raw emotion. So in that moment where he's throwing a fit and you're trying to calm him down, as a mom, a child crying, I'm instantly in panic mode. Like, that child is dying. I have to become Superwoman and I have to pick a car up with this kid. It's totally illogical, but I can't explain it. There is that like flight or fight in a mom. And if I'm having a really rough day and my anxiety's high and I'm having some depression going on, one of the children having a meltdown, my instant need in that moment is to fix what is happening with the child. So do they need a nap? Do they need something to drink? Do they need something to eat? My best recommendation for mom in that moment is to take a step back and just take a deep breath. If that's what's happening. From the way that husband described it, that's what it sounds like.
Right.
It just feels like whenever, like, okay, my mom, or look, he's with his mom, you know, so many hours of the day where she stay at home, whereas I come home after work, I only get so many hours with them. It feels like if I try and work with my son on anything, like, I guess a drip in the bucket versus her filling the bucket, I guess is the best way to put it.
Do you mean
I
like
don't know
discipline?
exactly.
Have you guys ever had a conversation about what discipline is supposed to look like and like the way that you guys are wanting to parent the child, or do you just assume each other's parenting styles?
We've talked about like we don't want to use corporeal. We're trying to do choices with him. He's at the point where he knows yes or no and stuff like that. So like whenever he's throwing a tantrum and stuff, I sit down with him. Are you hungry? Yes. Okay. Well, then what do you want? Like we go through that. Like he knows exactly. Like he can articulate well enough if you push him to it. That's where like I guess I'm like the screaming and crying isn't necessary. Just answer my question. What do you need?
He's 2.
Right.
I know, and I guess it's just me.
Yeah.
That's a me problem.
Right.
gotta-
Well, it's healthy because you're trying to teach him this now so that it's a normal function. We do this with our kids as well.
Right.
But when they are tired, they are going to scream and cry and whine and do those things. You just have to not indulge that.
Mm-hmm.
But her telling you he's tired, if you can tell that he's tired, is kind of redundant information, and it's not really. I think that so there are things that a father is going to do with a child that a mother's not going to do,
And vice versa.
and I think that having slightly variant personality types is going to be a good thing because it's going to teach the child how to deal with different parents and different people.
I agree.
But I think that you guys need to be on the same page with things. And if she's telling you that he's tired, you can simply say, "I see that." Unless
Is that a thing? Like, would y'all recommend like if one of us is working with our son, don't say anything until after the fact, like separately, privately?
yes, you don't step in. You don't overstep the parent because in doing so, you're taking.
That's what
away
I was having
control.
problems with.
Okay,
yes.
well, see, that's not what you said.
Yeah, that's undermining.
Oh,
a
I
parent.
apologize. I
Right.
may have misarticulated that.
Yeah.
It's like whenever I'm working with him, she's putting in input
Yeah.
contrary to
Yeah,
that.
you don't undermine. If Peaches is parenting, I don't step in, and if I'm parenting, she doesn't step in. So somebody asked in the chat a minute ago if pride and ego is the same thing, and it's not. Ego is the self, especially as contrasted with another self or the world. And then in terms of egotism or self-esteem, it's one of 3 divisions of the psyche in the psychoanalytic theory that serves as the organized conscious mediator between the person and reality, especially by functioning both in the perception and the adaptation to reality. Pride is a feeling of deep pleasure or satisfaction derived by one's own achievements, the achievements of those whom one is closely associated, or from qualities or possessions that are widely admired. And it also can affect your consciousness in terms of dignity and things like that. But so no, they're not the same thing.
I learned all kinds of things with you guys.
Yeah. Oh, Heather actually just put that in the
Oh
chat.
yeah, look at that.
Look at that. All right. Do you guys have anything else? Because if not, we're going to wrap this up so that I can have dinner and video games because we're going to play zombies tonight.
Well, you go play zombies and have dinner. Don't let me hold you up unless my wife has a question.
Is there a sense of resolution within you guys? Do you feel like this is going to help you? Did this give you a direction?
Yes, I do believe so, because my husband and I have never had a conversation about keeping finances out of other people's business.
Okay.
We definitely, and me and him are both guilty of talking to family members about our financial issues. So we're not going to do that anymore. We have also resolved, like, I'm going to try to be more mindful about if my dad offers something, I'm going to definitely come to him first. Before I say anything else to my dad.
It's real easy to just be like, let me talk to my husband or let me talk to my wife.
Yep.
Because it's the two of you now. It's not one of you making the decision for the two. The other thing
that's what I immediately thought of. Yeah.
Yeah. The other thing that I wanted to point out is when you guys are getting heated, and this is going to take practice and it's not going to be fucking easy, but the next time you guys are getting heated with each other, slow down and go, why are you getting angry right now?
Yes. That's a big deal.
Stop the conversation and find out where the anger is stemming from. Because once you can figure out where the anger is stemming from, well, you said this and it made me feel defensive, or you said this and it took away my pride, or you did this and I feel like you're just berating me. Once you have that, it's going to change the way that you talk to each other so that you guys can navigate that shit without it happening again. And the more you correct that in the moment, the less those things are going to come up because you're training each other how to talk to each other.
Yes.
So
I think it's also super important for you guys to implement, babe, what are you feeling right now? The assumption of feelings is one of the easiest ways to start a bad day.
Oh my God. Yes, it does. Yes, it does. And I was so guilty of that most of my life. Because you get so used to reading the room and you don't realize that you're reading it from your perspective.
Right.
Or if somebody sends you a text message and you're having a shitty day, that what are you talking about becomes, what are you talking about in your brain? Because that's what you're dealing with in the moment.
Oh, it's not just what are you talking about. It's what the fuck are you talking about?
Well, and that happens. I mean, people will hear what they hear, even though that's not necessarily what's being said because they base it off of how it made them feel.
Right.
Versus what was actually being said, which is why we slow down. Like I need to understand.
Yeah.
And if I may, that a stupid question for you, I guess, in that sense. I have a bad habit of, assuming the feelings and text message especially. Is that in conjunction with, I also assume the worst, I guess, like apocalyptic scenario with text messages and stuff like that?
Has the world ever ended?
Well, no, I mean more like somebody sends me a text, like say a customer, and I assume that they're going to drop me, they're not going to pay me, so on and so forth. Like worst case scenario, like now my mind's going down the rabbit hole of, am I going to have to get a lawyer to back me up, that kind of crap.
Bro, you are writing checks for debt you don't owe. Every time you do that, you are paying a debt you do not owe.
And it's taking a little bit of your life off of you.
Yeah. That's fear, uncertainty, and doubt. So you need to you got to reel that the fuck back in. And I understand why a lot of people do that, especially with text messages, because people are real brazen over keyboards and text because you can't hear it. They're not talking to you.
Can't get hit in the face.
They can be really shitty. There can be a whole lot of, hey, I really don't want to tell them this in person, so I'm going to shoot them a text message. But you have to dial that back. That shit is you're worrying about things that have not come to pass yet. That's not good. Like you are living in fight or flight literally, and there's nothing in any of this that's going to kill you. Even if somebody doesn't pay you and it becomes a court case, that shit's going to take time. So you getting worked up and freaking out about it right now is not going to fucking help anything.
Yeah.
It's just going to ruin your day. So you worry about those things when you get to it. Worrying about the fact that you're going to have to cross a bridge in 15 miles while you're on foot, that's like a day away, bro. Like, you worry about that bridge when you get there. Until then, it doesn't fucking matter. It's in the distance.
We actually just had a case like that pretty recent. And I kept trying to, in those moments, I don't know what else to do besides tell him that we'll get the resolution when it comes. Like I know you're freaking out about it, but it'll resolve itself eventually. And otherwise, I'm not sure how to help him in those situations.
Has he ever really let you down? Like truly, like just like end of the world shattering, failed you as your husband?
Uh,
I'm assuming if he has, you guys wouldn't be married anymore.
Not world shattering, but I have been let down sometimes. Yeah.
Okay, so let me rephrase that then. Has he ever dropped the ball to the point where it has fucking destroyed your life? Because you guys still have a business. You're still a stay-at-home mom. You have a baby. You guys are still making it work, even though it's hard from time to time. And the reason that I bring that up is because if he really truly let you down and it was world shattering, you guys wouldn't be married anymore. You wouldn't be together. It would have ended. So in those moments where those freakouts are happening, the reminder from the woman to just be like, hey, you've gotten us through a whole lot of shit. We're here. We're thriving. Like, it may not be the greatest life in the world, but we're fucking doing it together.
This ain't going to be the shit to take you down.
Right. That goes a long fucking way for us when we're going through that shit. Like, it gives us a little bit of that, okay, she believes in me. Mm-hmm. Right? That shit matters to men. I know that it sounds fucking silly, but it matters to us. Knowing that our women's have our backs makes us feel invincible. So...
My last bit of advice, question every single word before you use it.
Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Michaela said, what is the thing you said? If it's not relevant in 5 minutes, 5 hours, or 5 days, that helps me sometimes. That's my rule of fives. How does this affect my life in the next 5 seconds, 5 minutes, 5 hours, and 5 days? Because if it's going to happen in the next 5 seconds, I need to worry about the shit. If it's going to happen in 5 days, I got time to plan. If it's going to happen in 5 weeks or 5 months, they are fucked because I'm smart.
Yeah.
And I got this. So